Join us as to make welcome our guests for today. It is time to talk. This is the Kaine Show.
Here comes Kaine.
You're welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
You're welcome. Good to have you. You're so young.
Thank you.
Yeah, pretty.
Yeah, thank you.
So your work must take an emotional toll. How do you take care of your own mental and emotional well-being while doing this kind of work?
I think this is a very interesting question, a very important one. September had been a lot. We had done something that we called the Citizen Plenary, where we brought influential people. We had legislators, we had activists, we had politicians into a room, on AIT, and then we did something we called the Citizen Plenary, where we discussed women representation and constitutional development in Nigeria. And after that, I did a TED Talk, so some of my team members followed me to Zaria. After that, we did, there was just a whole lot of, back to back. There was the Army workshop that we did where we talked to soldiers on sexual harassment. So it was a lot. I enjoy spending time with family. I enjoy reading a book. I enjoy having slow mornings. So I think all of that is a form of self-care. But it's important that the work gets done. So I also remind myself that I need to be strong enough for the work to continue, because if I break down and, God forbid, something happens to me because I'm not taking care of myself, then it's not an advantage to the cause. Yeah.
So true. So true. How has the journey impacted you personally and professionally as a lawyer and advocate?
So I think for me, I started to think deeply about the law when I was in year 3, and we were talking about the laws surrounding sexual gender-based violence. And I felt like with regards to the crime that is rape and sexual gender-based violence, the law has a lot to do with regards how culturally it is taken. So we always talk about how rape and other forms of gender-based violence is not taken seriously. But perhaps we have to go back and look at the laws around this and see the impact the law has. Does the law even take it seriously to begin with? So during my criminal law class in year 3 in the university, I started to interact with provisions of the law with regards to SGBV, and I see how very redundant it was. So when the opportunity came for us to advocate for the Violence Against Persons Prohibition Act, I took it seriously. So for me, I think from that moment, I knew that perhaps my job is not to go to court and litigate. Perhaps my job is to see how we can advocate for policy changes. So when I started Aswell Support Initiative, it is with the aim to see how we can revolutionize how the law looks at women, how we look at women, and what we can do to ensure that, I use my legal knowledge to impact more on women's development in Nigeria. Yeah.
So what does creating a safe space mean to you in the context of healing and empowerment for survivors?
I think it means to believe survivors. We live in a culture where it is very difficult to believe when people tell you that this has happened to me. So the moment someone says this has happened to me, we all turn into prosecutors in our mind. We start to ask, so what were you wearing? Why were you there? Are you sure? Look at your eyes. You look like a very loose girl. So for me, it is a space of healing is a space to first believe. And as a lawyer, I know that has often always been very difficult because we are also taught to have a very critical mind. We're always often taught to question things. However, I have realized that the ability for a woman, especially in this our culture of shame and silence, to come out and say this has happened to me is a lot. So for me I always put the law aside to say, how can I first believe that this has happened to you, and how can I help you in a way that you want to be helped? Because one thing about sexual gender-based violence is that it takes away agency from a woman. I like to describe rape and assault as someone coming to encroach on you. In law, we call it trespass. So if somebody is trying to come and trespass on your body that you have agency to. So if I'm coming to help you, it is not for me to dictate how to help you, because that's also me taking agency away from you. It is now me telling you that I'm giving you your power back. So you tell me, how do you want me to come in? So I think basically that's it for me. Yeah.
That's a very good point, because someone can be injured and you're not feeling it. So you have to ask, where is the pain?
Yes, where is the pain? Yeah.
That's a very good point. Now, this is a very critical thing, because some people protect the people that abuse them. Like, for instance, the abuser is being protecting, or is protecting, or the abuse is protecting the abuser. Have you come across such people before? So let me just put it like this. How does someone know that they are a victim of gender-based violence?
I think you know that you're a victim of or a survivor of gender-based violence when it happens to you. But research has also shown that it takes 7 attempts for a woman to finally leave her abuser, for a woman to finally leave a perpetrator of abuse to her. And that's because scientifically we have something called the Stockholm Syndrome, where people like to just stay back in areas that they find comfort in. And I'm sure we've all seen people like that. We've all had friends, we've all had people that, you know, her husband is beating her or her boyfriend is brutalizing her. And you're wondering, why can't you just leave? Because it's not that easy. It's not that easy, because there's just so much that goes into abuse. For someone to even get into a place whereby the person is perpetrating abuse towards you, there is the emotional blackmail, there's just a whole lot of psychological impact that you must look at. And that's why when we advocate for a safe space, and when we advocate for sexual assault referral centers, we always tell the government that we want it to be holistic. It's not just a place for women to go sleep, but we must be able to offer them therapy. We must be able to offer them psychosocial support. We must be able to offer them economic empowerment, so that at the end of the day, all of those issues that ensures that a woman is being clawed on and stays in an abusive relationship or abusive situations, these issues are taken care of. So I think generally speaking, it takes, like I said, this is a research that has been done. It takes 7 attempts for a woman to leave. And sometimes, sadly, women also die in that situation. Some women die after the 3rd attempt. Some women die during the 2nd attempt. So when it comes to gender-based violence, it's also, who would you tell? So we're all complicit in the reason why people don't also leave. We have also, in Hausa, we call it bazarawa. So like, if a woman is a divorcee, and it's just supposed to be a divorcee, but there's a way they say it that it sounds like an insult.
Like an insult.
So when you also have such social stigma, sometimes chances are you don't want to bring shame to your family, to your house, to, you stay back.
Some people, for instance, say they're living with their uncles. And this is the uncle that's bringing them up from school. I know a true life story, a true life story, of a lady that brought in her younger sister to live with her. Now, the husband is taking care of her education. Now, the husband has been sleeping with her, and now she got pregnant. And she didn't see anything wrong with it. Even when she told her parents, they didn't see anything wrong with it. Now, in this kind of situation, or a lady living with the uncle, for instance, and she's been abused as a child, she wouldn't know that she's going through that. She feels it's a normal thing, like every night this uncle comes in and sleep with her, or the lady that is living with her sister's husband, for instance.
So I think that's where language comes in. Language is very important. I have a very similar story to the one that you shared. There's a girl that we discovered in a school, and she was telling us about how she was having an affair with her uncle. Now, this is a child that was 11, 12, and she was using the word affair. The truth is, when older people molest younger children, what they do is they threaten them. They tell them not to tell anyone, tell them that they would kill them. So the kids are not keeping quiet because they don't know that what has been done to them is wrong. They're keeping quiet because the people have already told them that nobody's going to believe you. And naturally, it just now that we're even changing the way we parent, we're trying to be conscious parents. Before now, it wasn't like that. So when an older uncle says nobody would believe you, you know for certain that nobody will believe you, because even when you speak and you say this person, it's going to be very difficult for someone to say yes, this happened.
This happened.
However, we must teach children the power that is in language. So a child has no business saying that she's sleeping with her uncle. Sleeping gives the illusion of consent. No, what has happened is that the uncle has raped that child. And we must call it what it is. You know, we must call it what it is for us to be able to take the power away from, you know, the perpetrator, and ensure that we use that power to punish, and to ensure that that perpetrator does not serve as an example to others that, you know, are thinking of doing the same or already doing the same. So I think language is very important, and we must teach children the power of language. We must teach children the correct names of their private parts. I know a court case that the girl said this uncle put his bum bum on her bum bum, and the judge said, oh, that's impossible. So because of that, the man was let to go scot-free. So we must teach children the proper language, so that when a child comes and says, mommy, this person touches me here, you know for certain where that here is, and you're able to, you know, take the next step. So we must empower children with language. Language is a powerful tool that must be used to empower everybody. The freedom of speech cannot be utilized unless and until you're able to use language to utilize it.
Now, talking about this now, there are cases where the abused protects the abuser. Even adults, you know, I've seen cases where a lady is dating a young man, a single mother, and the single mother, the guy probably sleeps with the daughter, and the woman will be protecting the guy against her own child.
Back to what we talk about, cultural impediments. But we must also remember that rape is a crime.
It's a crime, of course.
So, and then when we say something is a crime, it's not just against you, the individual. And that's why when you murder somebody, the case is not saying, if you murder me, for instance, it's not going to say Maina's family versus you. No, it will say the state of Nigeria versus you. Because when something is a crime, it is not taught. It is not a civil case, you know, it is a crime against the state. So it's the same thing with rape. Rape is a crime against the state. So if we had a working system, a mother that is shielding an abuser against, you know, the perpetrator, or would also be charged as an accomplice to the crime. So at the end of the day, we must always remember that this is a crime being done, and it's not a crime being done against. So it's not something that you will say, oh, but forgive him now. I don't have the power to forgive you. You have committed a crime against the state. And why things like this are considered crimes is because we do not need people like that in our communities. We do not need people like that in, you know, in the world. So we must take them away, you know, to the prison, to wherever it is, till the Lord says, you know, these people have served their cause, then they can come back, reformed back into the society. I
have this thing that is always bothering me, because I have a passion for this.
Yeah.
It gets me very, very angry, because it's just like when you're driving and they say if you beat the traffic, all you get is a ticket of 2,000, and you're like, damn it, you just keep beating the traffic.
Yeah.
This constitution, with respect to the constitution, do you think is enough that, you know, what is being given to these abusers? 2 years, 4 years, you think is enough? I know implementation, of course, Nigeria, but you think it's enough? And are people actually serving and doing things? Like when they are being caught, are they actually facing the law?
So I think there are so many problems that needs to be looked at. So we have the Violence Against Persons Prohibition Act that has a very modest terms of imprisonment. It's a brilliant law. I advocated for the law to be domesticated. However, as we speak, there's one state that has not domesticated the law. So, you know, this is also a conversation that needs to be had. But outside of that, you now realize that the law also provides for a mobile court. And why is that? Because we understand the bureaucratic natures of courts. You can go and want to solve a rape case, for instance, and before you know it, it's taken 5 years, it's taken 6 years. People have moved on with their lives. So we must have a court that would expeditiously ensure that these cases are handled on time. So outside of just the term imprisonment, we must look at the provisions on mobile courts. We must ensure that these courts are funded. We must ensure that we have enough SAC centers. The gender desks are properly trained to be able to solve these cases, to know how to respond to them.
So what are you doing, for these people, like practically, apart from them going to the police, going to elders? What do you do, for instance, if a victim runs to you? What do you do?
I think it's important that we state that Asthma Support Initiative is not a response organization.
Okay.
So we're a preventive organization.
Okay.
However, you cannot do the work of sexual gender-based violence without incorporating both. So we often find times where survivors now reach out to us. And when it comes to issues of solving SGBV cases, it's not a one-size-fits-all situations. So for instance, I am here in your show and someone had reached out and I asked that, if I could get her number so that we could see how we can solve the case.
Yeah.
So that is how whenever I go to places, this happens. People send us DM and then we are now forced to have to respond to these cases. And we must also remember that we're doing all this without funding, But in terms of prevention, what do? Our whole idea is to see how we can live in a society that is free of sexual gender-based violence. And how do we do that? We do that through 5 approaches. We do it through research. Where we go and then we read books, we look at ways. Like last 2-3 months, I had a conversation with a Gambian activist on how they were able to take away the FGM ban. So, such transnational conversations and research and having to write reports on all of these things to see how we can educate ourselves as to how we can do activism better. Secondly, we also do that through curriculum development. So we say we go to schools and we engage them. We have to develop the toolkit to be age appropriate, to be, context appropriate, to be environment appropriate. We also do that through policy advocacy. So we are at the forefront of calling for laws that affect women, the Violence Against Persons Prohibition Act, the Gender and Equal Opportunity Bills. We look for creative Gen Z ways to see how we can tell the legislators that, listen, these laws are before your table. And if you don't want an uprising, you better do the needful. It's difficult, but that's the job of advocacy. We also do that through training and facilitation. I told you that we're at the Army where we did a workshop. We're also at NIMET, so we were at NIMET rather. So these are things that we do. Go to hotels, because you as a woman that often travels, you would know that sometimes hotel staff are not well trained to be able to handle these issues. So we go to hotels and we train their staff. We also do that lastly through community engagement, and that's the school activities that I go for. We go to communities in Borno, in IDP camps, and we speak to them. We have to sit down and solve those cases to the best of our ability.
Like you said, like a doctor, for instance, you have to this is where he's hurting me. This is where he's hurting me. Now, if I don't permit you to treat me or to teach or to help me, how do you deal with such kind of situation? Because there are some people, they've been abused, they've gone through all this, and yet they're not open for help.
I think that's a very interesting question, but that's where training of the police comes in, because you're an individual with limited power. However, like I said, rape is a crime done against the state, and the state is empowered to prosecute such cases. So if you're able to train police to know that this is also part of their responsibilities, if you're able to train a police that is gender responsive, then you have situations whereby the police will be able to handle these cases by first educating the individual that sometimes this is a crime, it is done against you. But when it comes to the issue of prosecuting, it's not only about you. Because if you let this person go scot-free, for instance, he's going to go ahead and do it to other members of society.
Yes.
So it is now our responsibility to ensure that we stop this person from doing it. But it's an ongoing conversation. It's an ongoing trend. So you must ensure that, the work is a lot, but it is a work that can be done. So once we're able to have gender responsive policing, once we're able to have security agencies that understand the importance of prosecuting cases and that it is part of their responsibility, then I think these questions will no longer even be asked to individuals, because we now see that these are important things. It's very difficult for people to wrap their head around how rape is a crime. because we often just see it as, oh, it has been done to her. But no, you've done a crime against the state. It is treason, so to speak. It's a treasonous act. It's not something that we should take lightly.
So do you have a word that you want to say? Because
I think that no one needs permission to do something about the evil that you see in your society. We all should be change makers in our society. We all should be agents of change. You don't need anybody's permission to do something. If you see something, you say something. Don't wait for anybody to tell you that, oh, you should. Because at the end of the day, the fact that you're alive and you're here, it's for a purpose. And the purpose is to make the world a better place. So please do your part. And remember, don't ask for permission.
you've heard it well. Keep subscribing and follow. Don't forget, this is the Kranda show till we come your way again. Have a wonderful day.
Bye-bye.
It's time to talk.